You and I will have to make many hard decisions over our lifetime. Like, what career should I pursue? What school should I go to? And which job offer should I take? But here's a troubling fact. When faced with hard decisions like these, we will make a decision we regret more often than we think. When people make the decision to go to law school, pass the bar, and become a lawyer, there's a 44% chance that they will not recommend a young person to become a lawyer, according to the American Bar Association. When a Philadelphia school system examined the retention rate of their teachers, they found that the teachers were twice as likely to drop out of the school system than the students were. To avoid making a decision that we'll later regret, like these lawyers and teachers, we need to identify common decision pitfalls and avoid them. In the book Decisive, authors Chip and Dan Heath identify these 3 dangerous decision pitfalls. Pitfall number 1, we rarely consider more than 2 options when making a decision. In 1993, Ohio State University researcher Paul Nutt examined 168 decisions of big organizations. He found that 69% of their decisions only had one alternative. These 2-option decisions led to unfavorable results more than half the time. But when the executives considered more than 2 options, they had a favorable result more than 2/3 of the time. The second decision pitfall, we are blinded by short-term emotion. Take a moment and think about any recent decisions that you regret. Any chance you were seeking short-term comfort? We all have a natural bias for short-term emotional satisfaction over our long-term values. The third decision pitfall, we have a false sense of certainty. A study found that when doctors feel completely certain about a diagnosis, they're wrong 40% of the time. In another study, when university students believed that they had a 1% chance of being wrong, they turned out to be wrong 27% of the time. Our false sense of certainty is due to the fact that we avoid evidence that doesn't support our initial decision. Psychologists call this the confirmation bias. Our success or failure as decision makers depends on us being aware of these decision pitfalls and having techniques to overcome them. Luckily, authors Chip and Dan Heath have found 3 effective techniques for overcoming these decision pitfalls. They take the form of 3 questions. First, how can I widen my options and stop thinking narrowly? Second, how can I attain distance from my short-term emotions? And third, how can I reality test my assumptions before being certain of my decision? When you combine these 3 questions, they form the acronym WAR. Widen your options, attain distance, and reality test. We need to wage war on bad decision making. Let me show you exactly how to do that. First, widen your options. Pretend you rubbed a magic lamp, but instead of the beloved Robin Williams character in Aladdin, you don't get a genie that grants you 3 wishes. You get an evil genie. This evil genie takes all your current options away. Authors Chip and Dan Heath call this the vanishing options test. By running this test, you pretend that no good options are left on the table, and now you need to come up with a new set of options. Several years ago, Margaret Sanders, a graduate school director, was in a tough situation. One of her office administrators was underperforming, and she needed to decide whether to let her go or not. The employee in question was named Anna. Anna had to perform administrative tasks, but she also had to greet the students. But Anna was shy. Each social interaction with the students looked painful, but Anna was doing a good job in the other areas of her role as an office administrator. Therefore, Margaret had to wrestle with a binary this or that decision: fire Anna and deal with a mountain of paperwork, or keep her and put up with her shyness. Luckily, author Dan Heath had a chance to talk to her before she made a decision. He asked her, what if you were stuck with Anna indefinitely, and you couldn't rely on her to be the front door greeter? What would you do? By taking away her current options, it suddenly got her thinking. Well, we could move her out of the front door and try to staff the front door differently. Maybe the professional staff could take an hour each, and we could get some work-study students to fill in the rest of the time. By taking a moment to imagine a situation where both options were off the table, she was able to see promising alternative solutions. The second way you need to wage war on bad decision-making is to attain distance from short-term emotion. Take a moment and imagine choosing between 2 jobs. Job A represents a career you're well prepared for. In the long run, it would practically guarantee a high-paying job and prestige. Job B represents a non-traditional career that you've always been interested in. Your expected earnings would be much more modest, but the work would be much more fulfilling. In a study by Laura Cray and Richard Gonzalez, they asked students which job they would choose for themselves. 66% said job B. Later, the same students were asked to advise their best friends which job they would take, and 83% recommended job B. Asking, what would I advise my best friend to do, makes a decision clear because you're able to distance yourself from the short-term emotion that you're feeling. In 1985, Intel's president Andy Grove used a similar technique to make a difficult business decision. Intel had two main businesses at the time, memory and microprocessors. The memory business was once a thriving and profitable business inside Intel. However, several Japanese companies were now entering the memory market, and the business was suffering. Grove didn't know what to do, so he asked this simple question to his CEO, Gordon Moore. If we got kicked out and the board brought in a new CEO, what do you think he would do? Without hesitation, Moore answered, he would get us out of the memory business. By essentially asking, what would our replacements do? Grove and Moore attained emotional distance and made the smart decision to sell off the memory business. The third way to wage war on bad decision-making is to reality test your assumptions. Let's say you're in the market for a new car. You do your research. You started with 2 vehicles, but then you did the vanishing test, and you found 2 more vehicles. Then you attain distance by ruling out the sports car. As much as you want it right now, you know that you'd regret it in the long run. It's too expensive to maintain, and it's just not practical. Now you're set on the one car you want. It's a smart choice. Great gas mileage, perfect look, very reliable, and amazing warranty. You're sure this is the right decision. But does it make sense to buy it without giving it a test drive? What if the seats hurt your back after 30 minutes of driving? What if you find out it's quite noisy on the highway, and that's where you do most of your driving? Just as it's not wise to be overconfident about your car buying decision without test driving it, it's not wise to make any big decision without test driving it. Authors Chip and Dan Heath recommend that we find a way to reality test every big decision that we make. If you wanted to go to law school, you should first find a way to clerk at a law office, be around lawyers, and see how they actually live and work. If you're deciding to move to a new city, don't commit based on online reviews or recommendations from friends. Take a 2-week vacation, rent an Airbnb there, and pretend like you're living there, doing the things you do on a day-to-day basis. Only commit to your big decision after you've found a way to reality test it by running a small trial. So the next time you need to make an important decision, go to war. Widen your options by running the vanishing options test. Attain distance by giving advice to your best friend or asking what would your replacement do. And then reality test your assumptions by conducting a short trial. That was the core message that I gathered from Decisive by Chip and Dan Heath. This book includes many great decision-making techniques, including a section on preparing to be wrong. I highly recommend it. If you want a 1-page PDF summary of insights that I gathered from this book, just click the link below and I'll be happy to email it to you. If you already subscribe to the free Productivity Game email newsletter, this PDF is sitting in your inbox. As always, thanks for watching and have yourself a productive week.